When I investigated this and I went in because I like to have and I don't know how much you were able to look into it, dude, with those videos you sent me. I just came to the conclusion that everything that we think we know is a fucking lie.
Yeah, it is.
And the whole system is a lie. The two-party system is a lie. You look at like Alex Jones and when, what's his name, Elon Musk, were on Joe Rogan, and there's some amazing editing going on with that show, and I mean that in a great way. They're putting together some crazy clips that let you see how important that show is and how similar what they talked about were. And they are two ends of the spectrum. They're both talking about simulation. They're both talking about like AI and the dangers of AI. And it was really amazing to watch that they basically both said the same thing.
The elite are all about transcendence and living forever and the secrets of the universe, and they want to know all this. Some are good, some are bad, some are a mix. But the good ones don't ever want to organize. The bad ones tend to want to organize because they lust after power. Powerful consciousnesses don't want to dominate other people. They want to empower them, so they don't tend to get together until things are really late in the game. Then they come together. Evil's always defeated because good is so much stronger. And we're on this planet, and Einstein's physics showed it, Max Planck's physics showed it, there's at least 12 dimensions. And now that's why all the top scientists and billionaires are coming out saying it's a false hologram. It is artificial. The computers are scanning it and finding tension points where it's artificially projected and gravity's bleeding in to this universe. That's what they call dark matter. So we're like a thought or a dream that's a wisp in some computer program, some God's mind, whatever. They're proving it all. It's all coming out.
I think most likely, this is just about probability, there are many, many simulations. These simulations are, you might as well call them reality, or you could call them multiverse.
These simulations, you believe, are created? Like someone has manufactured?
They're running on a substrate.
Now, there's like this sub-transmission zone below the third dimension that's just turned over to the most horrible things is what it resonates to. And it's trying to get up into the third dimension that's just a basic level consciousness to launch into the next levels. And our species is already way up in the fifth, sixth dimension, consciously our best people. But there's this big war trying to like basically destroy humanity because humanity has free will and there's a decision to which level we want to go to. We have free will, so evil's allowed to come and contend, not just good. And the elites themselves believe they're racing using human technology to try to take our best minds and build some type of breakaway civilization where they're going to merge with machines, transcend, and break away from the failed species that is man, which is kind of like a false transmission because they're thinking what they are is ugly and bad, projecting it onto themselves instead of believing, no, it's a human test about building us up.
Well, that's the scenario. The merge scenario with AI is the one that seems like probably the best. Like
for us.
Yes. Like if you can't beat it, join it. That's
yeah.
You know. So from a long-term existential standpoint, that's like the purpose of Neuralink, is to create a high bandwidth interface to the brain such that we can be symbiotic with AI. Because we have a bandwidth problem. You just can't communicate through your fingers. It's too slow.
There's now a human counterstrike taking place to shut this off before it gets fully into place and to block these systems and to try to have an actual debate about where humanity goes and cut off the pedophiles and psychic vampires that are control of this AI system before humanity's destroyed.
Wait a minute,
humanity
the pedophiles
is only
in control of AI? How'd the pedophiles get in control of AI?
The pedophiles at a whatever level,
they rule.
The devil, whatever you want to call it, this interdimensional thing that gives them advanced off-world technology, the fallen one that's not of this world, is giving them advanced knowledge
What
on how
are you
to construct these systems
what is
that have already been used before on other populations.
What?
Is that Satan?
But what are you talking
Satan.
about?
That's Satan.
But explain that. You're saying
Satan
something
becomes
insane.
something that the stupid preacher tells you about, who's totally controlled, or something you read about on in the news or TV.
Right.
But this is an interdimensional force that wants to influence us to build something that absorbs us and kills us, rather than the divine free will we're given to build something much better that empowers the species. So the species is now making a decision about its entire future.
Where are you getting this from?
That's what it is.
But where are you getting it from?
I know from looking at all the data, researching it, studying it, watching the enemy. That's the big decision that humanity has now got before us.
How would you describe what a centralized bank is? Let's start before we get into the reserve.
Well, it's interesting. I was thinking about this, and there was a taxi driver years ago that I was in a car with, and he told me that, he said, what do you think the purpose of banks is? I said, well, as me, I just go in and I want to get a loan. It helps me afford my life and my lifestyle, and I'm making my payments. I need a place to store my money. I need a place to transact. He said, well, okay. He goes, where do you think banks got their name from? And I said, what? And he's like, no, where do you think that originated, the theory behind it? And I said, I don't know. He said, well, the banks of a river control the flow of that water and the direction. And money, you control the flow and the direction of the money. So a central bank, first of all, we have to understand a little bit of the structure here, the financial structure, the pyramid. You have the IMF and you've got the World Bank, but above that is the BIS or Basel III. Okay.
The Basel III was the Basel III.
Banking of International Settlements.
Oh, okay.
And so they're at the very top. I mean, there's people above that, but
like when you look at Russia, not to cut you off because it's really interesting. Russia, and I think it might be propaganda, celebrated kicking the Rothschilds out of Russia. But then you see they're still at that whatever that group is you just said. Mm-hmm. What's it called? The International Bank Settlement.
BIS, International Banking Bank Settlement.
So they're still a part of that, which started to make me think that the Rothschilds are evil, but they're also a boogeyman used kind of like the way we used, Osama bin Laden and Al Qaeda in a weird way.
Yeah. Well, there's more families involved than just them, and there's more interest. So there's also for your, I won't get into this today, but for your readers, there's this book on CIA's actual website called the Council. I think it's the Council of 300. You should read that.
Yeah, dude.
That's available in PDF form. You can download it and read it. It's very dense.
And you see some of the names on there. Do you know who's one of the names? And it shocked the shit out of me. Steve Ballmer. Do you know who that is?
No.
He's the owner of the LA Clippers.
Oh, shit.
He's the richest owner in pro sports. He's a giant part of Microsoft. Now, here's an interesting thing about Steve Ballmer is that he was like roommates or down the hall from the guys who invented Microsoft. Now, if you think this is a really smart rich guy, what a great way to get your business off fucking the ground than to bring in a rich kid who owns part of it.
Yep.
It's unbelievable.
No. This goes back hundreds of years. So there was the Bank of London, if I understand this correctly, that was formed in 1694, and the Rothschilds actually were not known as the Rothschilds back then. But about 100 years later, Nathan Rothschild, if I understand this correctly,
I like Nathan.
He financed both sides of the Napoleon War and was ready for crisis because no matter what would happen as a result of that war, he would win, and he would be able to take over the Bank of London. He would be able to possibly even get control of the reserve. So this has been.
But you know how he does that by once Napoleon loses, he runs back to London and tells everybody Napoleon won. They freak out, and this is a classic international banker move. We'll get into some of that. Is they all sell their bonds, and he comes in and buys them all at pennies on the dollar, and now he owns the pound.
Yes. Every single thing that you see of war is always to consolidate power, not by the people who are fighting it, but for the people who come in with the opportunity.
Right.
I mean, you can look at financial crash 2008 and look at who benefited from that. Who got more powerful and richer? All of the banks, all of the multinational banks, Citi, JP Morgan, and actually with no liquidity, really. It was credit, it was fake money that was printed, given to them by the central bank.
I don't know if you know this part, but we've talked about on here, and this is my belief, that, obviously the Civil War was very much about having a centralized bank that the England and I believe Spain were going to come in on the side of the South if they agreed to have a centralized bank. Lincoln was in fact issuing greenbacks. Mm-hmm. And have you ever heard the theory that Alexander II came in on the side of Lincoln because he just dealt with serfdom and all that stuff, and he kicked out all those bankers?
I didn't know that.
And that there was actually that Lincoln and Alexander were very close. They had bonded over both their situations, and that when the threat of Britain and Spain were going to come in, that Russia said, if you come in, we'll send.
They did.
Yeah, and they sent, and nobody talks about that.
About a blockade.
There's one fucking website there's one website, and this other guy who I don't know why he won't come on the show. They're the only ones who ever talk about the fact that Russia came in. Now, we can also go back with Russia and Kazakhstan, right?
Right.
And the old Khazarians that were a lot of people think were very much the dark arts people, and they are very much behind the whole international banking stuff, and that's a whole different show. But that's where a lot of the bumping was, Russia going after Khazaria or whatever it's called, and then him making them pick another religion, all that, and that's where the fucking Russian scare, Red Scare always happens. Then you have Lincoln doing this, and Lincoln gets assassinated by a Freemason, a level 33 Freemason. Booth is a Freemason. They kill him out. Next guy, I think his replacement even was centralized bank. He dies of poison. The next guy comes in, boom, centralized bank.
Mm-hmm.